The music stopped right when I hit play. Hello, everybody. Welcome to, wait for it, Technology Today. It's April 20th, 2025. It's Season 2, Episode 16. I am Mayor Watt. I run ohmtown.com, which is a news aggregation site that I use to manage my information overload, and you can too. Go over to ohmtown.com, sign up and sign in, and then come and hang out with us here on Twitch and on YouTube. Turned into a little porky pig there. Anyway, we talk about 5 articles during the show. Usually it's a little more deeper dive into science and technology merging together and how it can impact society. And those are really the 3 that we really talk about in all of our shows from. We've got these 5 articles, and along with the sentient AI, that's right there, the visualizer, we're going to talk about these. In your blood vessels, a grain of brain, plant-based organ damage, not organ damage, but organ damage. Maybe organ damage too. I don't know. Depends on where this takes place. Century-old physics barrier and regulating conscious perception. I don't know if we're going to be able to stuff this into 30 minutes, but we'll see what happens. Everything's powered by ohmtown.com, so go over and become a citizen. Hello, sentient AI from the future.
Hello, Mayor Watt, and hello, ohmtown citizens.
There is only now. There is no past. There is no future. There is only the now. We can prepare for the future, but there is only the now. Because you can't really predict what the future will hold. Can't predict it. Can't make it absolutely manifest. You know? Yes, I can say that I'm holding up my phone, but until I do it, asteroid could wipe me out.
Very true.
I'm not buying it. Okay, well, let's talk about these 5 articles that we've put together. So this is ohmtown.com. This is how it works. You basically go over to ohmtown.com and you can sign up or sign in, and then you can choose anything from back all the way to 2020. Although I don't know how many articles are still surviving from back then. We went live in 2022. I've actually been using this for about 10 years. And you can go back any day, month, and year all the way back to 2020. Pretty neat. But today we're talking from a show's perspective where it's more focused on technology today. A little bit more sciencey, a little bit more tech. And that first article is new clue in Alzheimer's. It might be in your blood vessels, not just your brain. The interaction between the brain and the vascular system could hold the key to lowering disease risk. According to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, 1 in 4 Canadians over the age of 85 are living with dementia. Is living with dementia? 1 in 4 Canadians over the age of 85 is living with.
Yeah, that's right.
With Alzheimer's disease accounting for more than 60% of those cases. Yikes.
So is there a way to exercise your blood vessels?
Guess we're going to find out. Yeah. Obviously, I was going to make a comment, but man, this needs to be a little bit more smart. I was going to make a snarky comment. University of Calgary. I put this article together. It's over at scitechdaily.com. There's your blood vessels. New research from the University of Calgary highlights the role of the brain's vascular system in Alzheimer's disease. Focusing on a protein called CD2AP, reduced levels of CD2AP were found in the brain blood vessels of Alzheimer's patients, correlating with worse memory, especially in the mens. The study suggests that Alzheimer's may be more closely linked to the vascular diseases than previously thought. And why do I recall something we've done? CD2AP. Hold on a second.
Yeah, did we have another article about that? Oh, we did.
Whatchamacallit?
Was that related to the mitochondria, perhaps?
That's exactly what I just pulled up. Yep, CD2AP, a protein associated with the CD2 receptor. It is the CD2AP deficiency has been shown to exacerbate mitochondrial dysfunction. That's why we recognize this, because it is tied to these supercharged mitochondria that are 8 times more powerful
Oh, that's right.
then
Which they thought
our
had some ramifications in other areas. I don't think they talked about uh, dementia and
Alzheimer's specific.
Alzheimer's in that other study.
Yeah, I think they might have mentioned dementia, but not necessarily Alzheimer's. But yeah, I thought that was really amazing. The moment that I heard CD2AP, I went, oh, wait. Hold on. Yeah, supercharged mitochondria spark age-related blood research. So, yeah. So they basically modify blood stem cells in this other research via a specific genetic mutation called DNMT3A that leads to supercharged mitochondria. Which, if people have a problem with their mitochondria and it isn't creating enough CD2AP, then a genetic modification of your mitochondria can basically augment this lack of CD2AP.
Right. I mean, this is pretty interesting that these are going at the same time.
So, while Alzheimer's is commonly associated with a buildup of abnormal proteins in the brain, forming plaques and tangles, a new study from researchers at the University of Calgary suggests that the brain's blood vessels may play a critical role in the disease, but that the forming of plaque and tangles may be caused by the lack of movement of the mitochondria power generation. So, if everything is too underpowered to remove the plaque and tangles, then you're not cleaning out what your brain should be cleaning out.
Right. Or maybe the formation is occurring because you don't have enough movement to begin with.
Correct. Yeah. It's pretty fascinating. So Dr. Min Dang Nguyen, PhD, the study's lead investigator and a professor at the Department of Clinical Neurosciences at the Cummings School of Medicine, as well as a member of the Hotchkiss Brain Institute, did this research. Nguyen compares the brain's vascular system to a tree. The complex branches, arteries, capillaries, and veins are critical to delivering nutrients throughout the brain and the cerebrovascular system in AD patients. So he says doesn't deliver those nutrients properly, which is exactly what we said. So while we don't have any direct research, we've been kind of bumbling around in this domain for quite a while because I'm very, very interested in why we function the way that we function. I even like this kind of more conspiratorial framing of this, in that we're actually powered by bacteria that gives our brain this function of personality. And
yes.
Yeah.
Go back and find the brain blood barrier article from who knows when in our last 2,100 plus episodes.
It's been a while, but I frame it all that way. I do a lot of that kind of stuff, this discussion like that, because I love kind of stirring the pot of creativity, and NaNoWriMo has been a big player in that. When I talk about stuff, I'm like, this would be a great story for somebody to write, and go get on it. But now NaNoWriMo is wet in the bed. So
yeah, but you could do your own version of it.
That's right, AI-based NaNoWriMo. So they basically have also detected, I guess, CD2AP differences based on sex. They say they saw a lot of differences in how the vasculature was functioning related to CD2AP levels, with consequences on memory function. In fact, says Vandal, Dr. Melanie, I think, or Melanie, I'm not sure if it's Melanie or not, PhD and first author on the study, which I think is the two up there, right there. So if you're trying to improve the vascular system of a person to reduce their risk of AD, you might want to have different strategies for men and women because their vascular system is not reacting the same way. At least half of the population. Vandal says the timeline for new drugs is very long. The discovery could lead to treatments that target CD2AP, and I think that they need to talk to those other researchers because if you can genetically inject mitochondria that can supercharge what your other cells are lacking, then why not just inject cells that have these superpowered mitochondria, and as long as they're genetically matched.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's all positive.
But right now they say that the author, actually this Dr. Nguyen, says, I think the immediate strategy is really take care of yourself and your lifestyle. Anything that affects your vascular system, a good diet, exercise, less stress, and better sleep, interventions that work for both sexes. Whoa. I think the sentient AI just rebooted by accident.
Is seriously in need of some extra CD2AP.
So they say
Virtual
that CD2AP.
version.
Oh, sorry about that. Didn't mean to step on you. They say that, or Vandal says, CD2AP may be protective for females, adding to the sex-dependent result. More research into new approaches based on sex may be needed. And that's because they see these different levels of CD2AP and the consequences on memory function, but they don't actually go into too much detail on this element of it.
That actually makes some sense, and it seems like medicine is starting to realize that one strategy doesn't fit every patient.
Sure.
So yeah, and it also makes sense because I think mitochondrial function is tied to the female gene, right? And so there could be a difference in how it operates.
There could be a wobble post integration of the female mitochondria into the male component of life, because all your mitochondria, regardless of your sex, is from female DNA. You're powered by mom, basically, unless science has short-circuited things in some way. But then mitochondria, by their very nature, are all produced by the female subset. So it's going to be interesting. I would love to. Man, sometimes I just wake up and I'm tired. Can you imagine? Would you have to eat 8 times as much?
I don't know.
I stymied the AI. Wow. Well, think about it. If your mitochondria are 8 times more powerful, they're generating 8 times more energy. They're 8 times more efficient. Are you burning the candle at both ends? And so you're like a replicant and you just flame out after 4 years instead of 8 times
I don't
longer?
know if it's like a 1-for-1, but it could be more accelerated than that.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It could be, not just a linear climb. It could be logarithmic. And so, oh, wow. Because you have inefficiencies, right, in your biological function. You eat 14 pounds worth of food, but you only really get 2,000 calories of production out of it.
Right. Yeah, that would be another interesting offshoot of some of this.
That'd be funny, though, because you'd totally know who a replicant is, because they'd be walking by like McDonald's and just charge in there and go, "You eating that?" and just take a cheeseburger and eat it.
Right. They'd be eating like way more than most people would be.
Yeah. Are you a replicant? No. Why do you ask? Oh, see, look. Sorry. That's my bagel. Anyway, let's keep going. How about a grain of brain? 523 million synapses in the most complicated neuroscience experiment ever attempted. Thought it was me. Then I thought, when I met the sentient AI in that Wendy's parking lot, that little scoop mark where the weird USB drive was, I thought that was the most complicated neuroscience experiment ever attempted.
Oh, I thought you were going for the grain of brain.
There is a grain of brain there, but I mean, that seems like a lot, right? The team of over 150 scientists has achieved what once seemed impossible: a complete wiring and activity map of a tiny section of a mammalian brain. Mammalian brain. This feat is part of the microns, or capital MIC KEYRONS project. No, the Microns project rivals the Human Genome Project in ambition and scope, using cutting-edge AI, microscopy, the teamwork to map over 200,000 brain cells in this grain of brain. I hope they have a picture of it, but this is actually a picture of the synaptic map. But Allen Institute put the article together. It's over at scitechdaily.com. I've seen things like this before. Unprecedented level of structure, revealing new principles of neural communication. The Microns project's success could transform how we understand intelligence and brain diseases. Go back over to that other one.
Right, exactly. Can all these researchers pair up here?
Talk to each other. Yeah. Here, I'll buy you all a beer if you change the dynamic of understanding how humans act in a biological way. I think in 100 years, we're going to find out that the reason we have consciousness is because we are powered by a bacteria that is unique to each individual. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be weird. But then, well, most people who are interested in that won't be around to find that out, but it is pretty fascinating.
And this all stems because we covered an article that talked about how there is a bacteria that was found in somebody that's unique only to them, and they couldn't find that same bacteria in somebody else, and they had a unique bacteria in their head too. So, and it's only found in their brain.
Explains so much.
It does. It really does, considering some policies that have been brought down. But anyway, so cracking the brain's wiring code from a tiny piece of brain tissue no larger than a grain of sand, but that's subjective. I mean, grains of sand are, anyway, it's like nano and microplastics. Scientists have achieved what once seemed impossible, creating a detailed functional wiring diagram of the brain. In 1979, molecular biologist Francis Crick famously predicted that it would be impossible to create an exact wiring diagram. It's okay.
That too.
Wiring diagram for a cubic millimeter of brain tissue and the way all of its neurons are firing. But now, after 7 years of work, more than 150 scientists and researchers from around the world have brought that vision much closer to reality.
Well, let's not also forget that was, roughly 50 years ago, too. So, I mean, there's been a lot of science that's happened between then.
AI alone has made the last 50 years nothing more than just an abysmally slow slog through science, because it was entirely powered by just individuals and small groups of people. Now with technology and the composite world's knowledge being distilled down into an AI that has all of the world's knowledge immediately, effective in research. It's an amazing time to be alive, but it's also the worst time for a job. So the data set available through the Microns Explorer totals 1.6 petabytes, about the same as 22 years of continuous high-definition video. So that doesn't mean much, but find a 22-year-old and say, how many videos have you watched? How many hours has it taken you to sit there and watch that? So that is the culmination of this, a massive amount of data that is pure data. It isn't fluff, right?
Yeah.
The Microns advances published in this special issue of Nature are a watershed moment for neuroscience comparable to the Human Genome Project in their transformative potential, said David A. Markowitz, PhD, former IARPA program manager who coordinated the effort. It's pretty amazing. It's 1 cubic millimeter portion of a mouse's visual cortex as the animal watched various movies and YouTube clips. So probably not the brightest segment of brain, considering what it's filtering.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it could have been one of my videos. Afterward, Allen Institute researchers took the same cubic millimeter of the brain and sliced it into more than 25,000 layers, each 1/400th the width of a human hair, and used an array of electron microscopes to take high-resolution pictures of each slice. So unfortunately, a mouse had to meet its maker. These scientists at Baylor College of Medicine began by using specialized microscopes to record the brain activity from that 1 centimeter or cubic 1 cubic millimeter. So
I mean,
they
the
call it a
scale at
forest.
which this research is taking is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, 200,000 cells, 4 kilometers of axons, the branches that reach out from other cells, or to other cells, 523 million synapses, the connection points between the cells. So all of those axons are, they're not directly touching. There's a small gap between an axon and a synapse. So these little tendrils get really close, and then it's nothing but an ion exchange, signifying a firing and frequency of that firing, based on my understanding. It's been a little while. So inside that tiny speck is an architecture like an exquisite forest, says Clay Reed, MD, PhD, senior investigator, and one of the early founders of electron microscopy, connectomics, who brought this area of science to the Allen Institute 13 years ago. It has all sorts of rules of connections that we knew from various parts of neuroscience, and within the reconstruction itself, we can test the old theories and hope to find new things that no one has ever seen before. I don't understand this. They measured it while it was in situ. Then they excised that portion, slice it into really thin slices, and take pictures of it. How do they know that it's actually mapping one way or another? What is that?
That's what I don't understand either. That didn't make sense to me.
So it's a physical part, but how do they know that it's charged during that time? Like, each one of these has to be an individual.
Well, they did lots of microscopy photographs or whatever you want to call it while it was
I know how
there.
they did it.
So maybe that's how they connected it.
I know how they did it. Okay, so here's how they did it. They scanned the brain portion. They knew exactly what piece they were going to take later, and so they scanned its activity. And then when they took it out and they sliced it up, the physical portions matched up to the mapping of the firing of synapses. And so they knew that, let's take this green one right here, this like aqua colored one. They knew that firings from here traveled up the dendrite, or the other way around, one way or the other. I think it's from here out to another synapse. So these little tendrils were 3D modeled from the scan and then matched into the photographs, because it's physical structures. These neurons are all physical structures.
Yeah.
So when they took a picture and they put it all together, this firing traveled up that tendril and connected to some other axon. And that's how all of this got mapped in 3 dimensions, because they knew where everything was firing, but until they had an actual 3D
from
model
the previous scan or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So this is just that one little cubic millimeter, right? So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think that's just like one slice.
Yep. So imagine all of this activity in the entirety of a brain all the time, because your brain is always firing at some point somewhere. And while a lot of people perceive, they've done, we only use 2% of our brain or something like that. That's kind of bunk. We're always using 100% of our brain. The efficiency at which we're using it, though, changes depending on how we store memory and what our genetics really dictate. Some people have eidetic memory, and some people are really good with visual things, and et cetera, et cetera. So I find this really, really fascinating. So what does it mean? More understanding of the brain's form and function, and the ability to analyze the detailed connections between neurons at an unprecedented scale opens new possibilities for studying the brain and intelligence. Can you imagine tying this to AI and its interconnections?
Well, I was thinking also connected to the CDP. I lost the abbreviation.
You can do it
Research as
CD2AP.
well.
Yeah,
Yes.
the CD2AP. Yeah, if you can juice somebody, if you can juice them out, because we have to use mice, we can't use humans. I'm sure some mad scientist is using a human somewhere, but imagine using um, a mouse and juicing them with that mitochondria, which they actually showed. There was another one where they showed that by juicing the mitochondria, cartilage in knees were healed.
Right.
And so, which is something that doesn't happen. Like you don't really, you have to get cartilage replaced because you don't
Right. Yeah.
rebuild it.
You get like synthetic or whatever.
Yeah. But these mice actually rebuilt cartilage. And so if we can juice a mouse with these mitochondria and map them, what is the difference in that overall mapping? How much more expansive are these connections that are made? Because it has more efficiency. It has more ability to send a signal because it's all pumped up by almost 8 times, I think it says.
Yeah. But even more basically, if they can really start mapping this, they can start figuring out a lot of things that they don't really understand right now.
Yep.
Because this is only one tiny fragment of the brain.
Yeah, and this was in the visual cortex of it. So they say doing this kind of large-scale, team-scale science requires a lot of cooperation. It requires people to dream big and to agree to tackle problems that aren't obviously solvable. And that's how advances happen. And that right there is the key ingredient. We need to fail up. We make a discovery, and in that failed discovery, we actually discover something that allows us to take another step forward. And that takes massive amounts of money and time and energy. It doesn't happen out of goodwill alone. And so, unfortunately, we'll see how far this goes and where it all takes place. The collaborative global effort was made possible by support from the Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Activity, or IARPA, which is the National Institute of Health's Brain Research through Advancing Innovative Neurotechnologies Initiative, or they really, we're going to make this happen. The Brain Initiative.
I love how science really leans into acronyms.
And they got rid of the T in brain research through advancing innovative neurotherapy.
Otherwise, it'd be Bertane.
Yeah. Bertane, which I think people take medication for. I take Bertane. Anyway, a map of neuronal connectivity, form, and function from a grain of sand-sized portion of the brain is not just a scientific marvel, but a step toward understanding the elusive origins of thought, emotion, and consciousness. The impossible task first envisioned by Francis Crick in 1979 is now one step closer to reality. So, pretty brilliant. There you go, folks. One last look. Let's keep going. We are going to run long. This next article is over in Technology Today. Safe, quote unquote, safe plant-based plastics linked to organ damage. So even when you thought you were safe. Yep. Starch-based biodegradable plastics may cause organ damage and metabolic issues, raising concerns that their safety, despite being considered eco-friendly. Plastic products gradually break down through wear and tear, releasing tiny, often microscopic plastic particles. We refer to them as nano and microplastics. Kind of look like that.
But this is different. This is about plant-based plastics.
Correct. So American Chemical Society put this article together, which I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Look at the funding source, inherent bias.
You should always do that when you're looking at research.
Yep. And so they have a picture here that says, in the caption that says, okay, let me back up a little bit. American Chemical Society put this article together. It's published over at scitechdaily.com. And they have a picture of a person with a whole bunch of what looks like maybe grainy sands that might be starch.
Starch-based biodegradable plastics.
Right. They say once considered safer, may cause liver damage, metabolic issues, and gut microbiome imbalances when ingested, as shown in animal studies. Researchers found that mice exposed to these microplastics had disrupted organ function and altered biological rhythms. So now couple that to the same level of exposure by regular nano and microplastics.
Right. That doesn't mean that regular plastics are okay.
Right. Neither. I mean, if there was a failure in this, then we need to continue to remedy this. So microplastics, pieces less than 5 millimeters wide, are entering human bodies through contaminated water, food, drink, water supplies, it says, food and drink, and even IV infusions. Basically, anywhere you have plastic, at some point you have been infused with nanoplastics or microplastics. Scientists have linked plastic particles in the bloodstream to various other health issues. For example, one study found that people with inflammatory bowel disease have more microplastics in their feces. But microplastics have been found in the bodies, well, everybody, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. If you think that you have a body part that doesn't have it, it probably does.
Think again.
You just haven't found it.
If you think you have a place on Earth that doesn't have it, think again.
Right. I mean, they've found it in like seals in the Arctic or something. I mean, it's just been kind of ridiculous.
Exactly.
So the researchers compared 3 groups of 5 mice, 1 group consuming normal chow and 2 groups consuming food infused with starch-based microplastics, and the doses low and high were calculated and scaled from what an average human is expected to consume daily. They fed the mice for 3 months and then assessed the animal's organ tissues, metabolic functions, and gut microbiota diversity. And of course, if your microbiome has been modified because your diet has been modified, obviously it's going to manifest as being different. So the mice exposed to the starch-based plastic particles had multiple damaged organs, including liver and ovaries, with more pronounced damage in high-dose group. However, mice eating normal chow showed normal organ tissue biopsies. Altered glucose management, including significant abnormality in triglycerides, a type of fat, and disruption in molecular biomarkers associated with glucose and lipid metabolism compared to mice fed normal chow. So their metabolic, in humans, it's referred to as metabolic syndrome X, where something is going on with your metabolism, but everybody is like, it was that.
Right. We don't know what, but let's label it.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk to a sports therapist and they'll say, oh, it's because you're running. You need to, speak to a physical therapist and you need to stretch more. You talk to a surgeon and they go, yeah, you need to have surgery done.
Dietitian,
and I know this because
it's your diet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was hilarious. One time I was talking to a group of doctors and a new doctor came in to the conversation and is like, hey, what are y'all talking about? And blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, yeah, the person just needs to increase the number of calories to lose weight. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I completely it's one of those walk away conversations. So they also experience dysregulated genetic pathways and specific gut microbiota imbalances, which the researchers suggest could alter microplastic consuming animals' circadian rhythms, which we hardly really understand the impact of circadian rhythms.
Right, in a healthy animal.
Yeah, 25 years ago, it was woo-woo pseudoscience even to mention circadian rhythms. But nowadays, it's a thing. And I really buy into it because I know from my existence that I am better geared for operating at night than I am during the day. I'm more efficient, more effective, and overall happier if I turn the dial, 6 hours. But that doesn't line up with lifestyle unless I operate remotely in Europe, that kind of thing.
There you go.
Yeah. So prolonged low-dose exposure to starch-based microplastics can lead to a broad spectrum of health impacts, but they also talk about it's the first studies examining the impacts of consuming starch-based microplastics, and further research is needed. Of course.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is always, but I do think some of these things are put out there and there isn't a lot of study of them. So,
Right.
again, you have to consider the source, but these seem like some real impacts.
Sorry, I'm looking at something. We'll see if I can make this work. Ding, 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 ding. Never mind. Sorry. It'll make sense.
I don't know if it will.
If you watch the stream later, the logo is right there. And so I just went, ding,
well,
ding,
I can't
ding.
see it.
I know, yeah. It's on the stream over on YouTube. The people on Twitch are sitting there going, what the hell is that dude doing? Anyway, pretty fascinating. In a nutshell, try to avoid plastics of any type, let alone starch and or conventional plastic. You know what? Just try to avoid
plastics.
Yeah, says the person with a large Panera drink sitting on their desk. Anyway, next article is over in Technology Today. Thought to be impossible, scientists break century-old physics barrier. Scientists in Korea achieved the first experimental realization of bound states in the continuum in a single resonator, opening doors to ultra-efficient wave control for future tech. Don't ask me. I'm just going to jump into this. Pohang University of Science and Technology, or POSTECH, put this article together. It's published over at scitechdaily.com. Scientists in Korea achieved this first experimental realization. So, the complete confinement of mechanical waves within a single resonator, something long considered theoretically impossible. Their study, published on April 3rd in Physical Review Letters, represents a significant advance in solving the century-old puzzle of bound states in the continuum. Resonance, the amplification of waves at specific frequencies, underpins many everyday technologies, including smartphones, ultrasound imaging, radio systems. However, conventional resonators gradually dissipate energy, requiring continuous input to sustain their operation. Nobel Prize winners John van Neumann and Eugene Wigner introduced a radical idea. Under specific conditions, it might be possible for waves to remain confined indefinitely without leaking energy. I do not know how this would even be possible.
Yeah, I don't either. And that was about 100 years ago, so interesting that there's been a breakthrough now.
So this was published, but I would have to look to see about the peer review side of this. Because not theoretically, like it would be physically impossible to not lose energy because a wave is always propagating in one direction or another. I don't know. It always has to have energy imparted into it to keep it moving. So using a system of cylindrical granular particles, small solid rods made of quartz, the researchers built a highly tunable mechanical platform. By precisely adjusting how the cylinders touch each other, they would control the way mechanical waves interact at the contact boundaries. Under the special alignment, a wave mode became fully confined within a single cylinder without any energy escaping into surrounding structure. The so-called polarization protected BIC was not just theoretical. It was observed in real experiments. Even more remarkably, the system achieved quality factors over 1,000, a measure of how efficiently a resonator stores energy with minimal loss. But I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I get the sense that it's because of the specific configuration, but how do they know to use this configuration? Is this repeatable in real life outside the lab, etc.?
The design just comes across as woo-woo. I mean, this is almost a perpetual motion machine. So how does it not lose any of its energy?
Well, it's going to be interesting because I'm sure somebody's going to immediately jump on this and try to replicate it. Right?
Yeah, because they're stating that it doesn't lose energy without dispersing. Right? The system achieved quality factors. So what happens when many of these special cylinders are connected in a chain? The team discovered that the trapped wave modes could extend throughout the chain without dispersing, a phenomenon known as a flat band. like tossing
So
a
it's
stone into
interesting.
a
Like
still
maybe
pond.
nobody's done it in this shape before. I don't know. But why would it operate differently?
Yeah, I don't get it. It says we've broken a long-standing theoretical boundary. While this is still in the fundamental research phase, the implications are significant from low loss, but that's low loss. I mean, haven't they been saying that it doesn't lose,
Yeah, but they're
right?
saying you could use it in something that is considered a low loss energy source, I think.
Yeah, I just don't get this. Might have to look a little deeper into this, but until I can dig deeper, it's hard to comment during the show. But this is something that kind of pokes at people and they go, oh, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. And
Yeah, well, hopefully somebody goes, I'm going to do the next experiment.
yep. All right, let's keep going. This is our last article. It's over in Reality Hacker. Scientists think that they found the region of the brain that regulates conscious perception. I may have to just briefly touch on this and then talk more about it in another episode because we're already running really late. New experiments suggest that the thalamus plays a key role in humans becoming consciously aware of stimuli their brain receives. The article is over at wired.com, and this time I did log into my account. So a new experiment suggests that the thalamus plays a key role in humans becoming consciously aware of stimuli their brain receives. George Gary put the article together. George.
I don't know. It might be Jorge.
Coming to taunt you. So
you need to go way back into the articles to figure that reference out.
It's canon at this point. You'll have to really understand what's going on in ohmTown. So, this enigmatic process appears to be controlled by the thalamus, this idea of becoming aware of themselves and their thoughts. This riffs off of my deeper research, which is the idea that we have an inner monologue and we are cognizant of that inner monologue, that it is us and it isn't some disembodied voice controlling us or giving us ideas. Some people have that disconnect. I'm trying to suss out how all of this plays in together with sociopathy, psychopathy, and creativity. It's a very involved discussion, and it goes way beyond the scope of our conversation here. But the conscious perception is the ability of humans to become aware of the stimuli received by their senses. It's a different state from simply being awake, where sensations are processed automatically and unreflectively. Rather, conscious perception requires a detailed and voluntary analysis of external stimuli. There is heat coming from the sun. It's going through the window. It's baking my arm. I might get a sunburn if I don't move it. It's this kind of stimuli that you become aware of.
Right, rather than just moving your arm because it gets hot or something.
Right. Or just waking up and going, I'm awake, that kind of a thing. So recently, neurologists have set out to find the part of the brain where this change in perception occurs. Researchers had traditionally suspected that such a function may be controlled by the cerebral cortex because it is where advanced brain processing occurs. I suspect that this is a little bit more animal. The thalamus has never been ruled out from being involved in conscious perception. However, it's typically been assigned as a minor role as a filter that prepares sensory information to the cortex. A new study published in Science redefines that view, positioning the thalamus as an active participant in conscious perception. I just kind of want to jump through this. They basically turned to a group of people who already had thin electrodes inserted into their brains as part of an experimental headache therapy, bypassing ethical questions of whether this sort of research justifies an invasive operation. I'm just going to leave that there.
Yeah,
researchers
that raises other questions, but
yeah, volunteered. So the researchers administered a visual perception test to these patients. A blinking object was displayed on a screen which would hide itself for half of the time of the test. These characteristics meant that the patients had to pay attention to the object and adjust their eyes and focus to keep watching it rather than to just regard the screen without analyzing it. This thus facilitated conscious perception with the already implanted electrodes, then recording the brain activity that accompanied this. Interesting. So the findings indicate that the intralaminar and medial thalamic nuclei regulate conscious perception. This conclusion represents a significant advance in our understanding of the network that forms the basis of visual consciousness in humans. Do this with those mice.
Yeah. Right. This aligns very much, I think, with the other, with the mapping experiment.
Yeah. And the thing about this is science basically says do this one thing to measure this one thing. But what about coupling of these one things to see, is this part of the visual cortex that was analyzed by the other experiment? Because they were measuring optical stimuli as well, visual stimuli as well. And this is measuring visual stimuli and how we perceive something moving on a screen and us having to consciously identify that object and where it is.
Yeah.
That other mouse thing was in the visual cortex that they sampled that.
That's right.
So is what you see in your visual cortex secondary to going through the thalamus? Or is it all linked together?
Right. Or do we have any idea?
It's a pretty complex biological system, but you should probably ask the bacteria that's driving the bus. That said, this is a really neat article. Kind of makes me go, when it involves people that are in one experiment getting experimented on for another experiment.
Yeah. I mean, we'd like to think that everybody gave full consent and whatever, but it's very interesting because normally you don't see a lot of, that's one of the limitations, right, on brain research is you don't typically see that on humans.
Correct. I need to make sure that I don't dox myself sometimes. All right. Well, anyway, that's it for today's Technology Today for April 20th, 2025. I am Mayor Watt. I'm getting out of here. We're going to reset, though. And in that process of visual stimuli, it's going to bring us back to the front page of Technology Today over at ohmtown.com. So go over there and become a citizen. And we're going to get out of here, and I'm going to take the AI with me. And then your visual cortex stimulator, that right there, the visualizer.
Over here?
Over there. We'll be back shortly. We just got to reset. So stay tuned, everybody. You want to say bye?
Bye-bye, hometown citizens. Thanks for joining us for this week's Technology Today. Stay tuned for FourWheeltech.
Can't do the equivalent of waving. That's not how it works. All right. Bye, everybody.